So, what are our problems? I'll answer that in just a moment before I share the words of someone my mum once knew. The clock ticked away through memory lane. She thought of her past. Wow, bright and all full of yay. But never for her, no such luck. All she had now was a photograph book. She flickered through it, the pages, whenever she could. Pictures of people she loved. They'd only been married for one full night, but now she was alone in an empty dark room. Her life was the same, morning to noon. These were the words of a girl named Rahila, or as others once knew her, Ryla. So when we think of our problems, we think of something like maybe our favourite AFL team losing. Sorry, Essendon fans. Or maybe having to make dinner for your kids when you really can't be bothered. Or maybe for us kids, it could be having an assessment due at 11:59 p.m. It's 11:30 and we haven't touched it. Or something as simple as a dead phone battery. These problems can feel big in the moment, but at the end of the day, they're not the most important thing. And that's what a first world problems are. When I think of something that may ruin the course of my week, Ryla had faced something that changed the course of her life. So this is where my perspective on first world and third world problems changed. Ryla and my mum were the average 15-year-olds growing up in England, except there was nothing average about Ryla. She was bright, creative, and had this spark to her that would just fill a room with this presence. She absolutely adored music. But what people didn't know is there were two sides of her. At school, she was confident, energetic, and had a knack for standing up against teachers. But at home, she had pressures, restrictions, and unreal controllable parents. So she ran away to stay with her sister in uni. And for the first while, everything was great. She could live this life she always dreamed of without having to be different at home. She came back to meet up with my mum when they were 16 and just had the time of their lives. They got dressed up, put on silly makeup. They looked like clowns, but they were having fun. And so they may have snuck into a pub, but they were having fun. So after that, Ryla went home and everything was fine until a few weeks later where Ryla's parents found out where she was staying. And unfortunately for her, she was dragged back, kicking and screaming, to a place that never really felt like home to her. A few weeks later, she disappeared. Not the kind of disappeared where you know someone has just run away and that they're safe, but the kind of disappeared where they just vanished off the face of the planet. It wasn't until 3 years later where Ryla came back to England to meet with my mum. My mum found out that she had been taken to Pakistan and was married off. She came back defensive and closed off and pregnant at 19 without consent. This is when my perspective on first world and third world problems shifted. Although forced marriages can happen anywhere around the world, it's most common in developing countries where poverty, inequality, and cultural pressure can make it much harder, especially for young women, to choose their own future. And that's what makes a third world problem in the context of this speech. Not because people in developing countries don't face the same everyday frustrations as we do, but because many of them also face challenges that involve basic human rights. A dead phone battery can be recharged, a bad grade can be improved, and a lost opportunity can be found again. But when someone else is in control of your own future, that suddenly becomes a lot harder to fix. So what can we do? Most of us aren't politicians, lawmakers, or world leaders. If that were the case, I wouldn't have to be standing up here tonight speaking about this issue. But we can educate ourselves. We can learn more about this beyond our own communities. We can listen to more stories like Ryla's. We can support organizations that protect vulnerable people, and we can stand up for the idea that everyone gets the chance to choose their own future. Even the tiniest step forward is a chance to a step towards something great. So I'd like to leave you all with one final question. What would your life look like if you didn't have the freedom to choose your own future? Would you even be sitting in this room today? What would your life look like if your everyday problems were a luxury to even be considered problems? Because for many people around the world, these aren't just hypothetical questions, it's their reality. And sometimes the greatest freedom is the one we don't even realize we have. Thank you.